Thank you, thank you. And it's an honor and a privilege to be amongst great women. So to be in this space is an honor. So standing before you, and I think those that know me, maybe a few of you do, I tend to say I do not recognize color. So pardon me for not referencing myself as a woman of color, because I do not believe there is such a thing as color, because it is when we start recognizing those colors that the divisiveness starts. So it was very interesting, as the speakers noted, the possibilities that are in the future for reconciliation. I like that word, because whilst everything that is great is discussed, and sometimes we become victims of verbiage or victims of just wordplay, and nothing is really taken home in terms of what about some of us that are of the visible minorities? What are the programs that are being mapped out so that we can come to the round table to start talking about and having the conversations? Because the gaps do exist. The reality, my reality as a black woman, again, I'll reference politely to say black, though when you look at me, I'm not totally black. That's why I tend to play around with the word that there's no color. But as a woman of visible minority, what is the next step forward? What are the plans that will make it inclusive for those of us that are visible minorities? Because we do have issues. We would like to be invited to the round table so that you can hear our stories from ourselves, our experiences, as opposed to our experiences being documented on our behalf. Because a lot of that has been done and facts have been mystified. So I am, again, as I stand before you, and as I will say, it's been a privilege and an honor. So I'm hoping that as a representative of women, because my organization is Women Arise. So I'm saying, women, it's time to rise. Women, it's time to come together. And let's talk about it. Let's share our realities. Let's share our experiences. Then you will understand where I am coming from in my shoes. If I give you 5 minutes to be in my shoes, then you'll know my dilemma as an African woman, as a woman of visible minority. So it is my plea to the speakers, to the organizers, that do call us to these forums. We have stories to share, with experiences to share. Then you begin to understand our stories, and you begin to understand where we're coming from. Because at the moment we feel very excluded and unwelcome. But however, I will say it has been an honor to be here. And in this space, ladies, it's an honor to see greatness rise, because you all rise and you all shine. But I believe in one philosophy: together we stand, divided we fall. And as women, there's no powerful movement that can beat women standing together. So this is hopefully the start, and you'll see more of us if you welcome us and start including us in the conversation.
Thank you so much, Maria. And Women Arise is a wonderful, wonderful organization. So we encourage you to chat with Maria and make those connections. As Dr. Williamson was saying, we're all collaborators here. And we all have an opportunity to learn from each other, to have an understanding of our daily lives, of what we can do to improve our lives. Is there any other questions?
Thank you. Sorry if I'm really shaky. I'm nervous. I'm not a public speaker. I just had a question, actually, something that didn't seem to be very much discussed. As we're discussing intersectionality and the deconstruction of colonialism and racism, I feel like that might actually be attributing more to the rise of like trans visibility and non-binary visibility, because that's very much a colonialist attitude. Like people who are non-binary or trans have always existed in people of color. It's very much just within the past however many hundreds of years we've been oppressed, you know, that we see that erasure. Like there was this video being shared on Facebook not too long ago, actually, about a white AFAB doctor named James Berry, and she was white, and she's even being touted as a trickster, as a woman who lived her life as a man, but it was for many, many years, 60 years, and the odds of this person potentially being a trans man and just erased from white history is astronomical. This person is not alive today to correct me on their pronouns and how they like to be referred to, but even seeing in white history people who are not necessarily in the binary or who are trans is just gone. So I feel like maybe the rise of people who, like me, identify as non-binary might be due to the fact that we're actually just letting those things come through now that we're not, like, no, that's not real. There's only men and women and white people. So I just maybe wanted to throw that out there as the person of color who's also non-binary. I feel like that's just maybe a thing. Sorry, thanks.
Yes, thank you very much for both of your contributions. I think they're really important, and the ways in which non-Western traditions shape identity differently and shaped what it meant to be male or female differently is really significant. And of course here on Treaty 6 land, the idea of the two-spirited person has a very, very long history. And there are in Western culture, there is also a long history of the kind of trickster gendered person who lived fabulous masquerade lives in other identities other than the binary one that was fixed when they were born. So that is a really important contribution. And I just thank you very much for your eloquent rising women statement. I really appreciate that, and I do think that the idea of coalition building and of working together and of allyship is key to moving forward. And in fact, I think that, you know, the Women's March, the way it structures itself, we need to make sure that it's actually organized to privilege diversity in the actual core of it. And that will make a difference in terms of the kind of stories we tell, the kinds of events we shape, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you very much.
She wants to ask a question. Oh, sorry, you wanted to comment as well? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't have to add much more to that, but just the fact that I do think it's part of that archaeology of knowledges that have been lost, right? That there are many other ways of being and interacting and living together that are very far removed from our, you know, heteronormative, heteropatriarchal, capitalist ways of being, right? That serve a certain end that doesn't really benefit any of us, really. I don't think many of us benefit from this system. So thank you very much, and thank you to both questioners and comments. Yeah.
There's one more question here, I think.
I'm a Gemini, so I both have optimism and great concern. I'm 65, and with all due respect, I have benefited greatly by these systems. I'm white, my mother was Aboriginal, my grandmother was born in a reserve, but I got my father's white skin. My mother said, you can do and be whatever you want, and I believed her. So here I am at 65, by my own standards very successful, and I'm mad as hell. I'm mad as hell that you're standing up and you're just asking to come to the table. I mean, really? In 2017? So here's my concern. I mean, I love the fact that you want to be at the table. I'm mad that you have to ask. That's my point. I don't want to be misunderstood. You know, in my world, you have a place at the table. So here's my concern. If we don't organize and focus on a point or two, or 3 or 4, not 20, not 30, not 100, we don't organize in the next 18 months, we are going to see something happen in this country, in this province. It's going to start here first. So I'm new to the conversation. I don't know where the power groups are, but they exist. They exist in this room. The us and them exist in this room. As women in Edmonton, we must do something so that when Jason Kenney comes to town, that we are there, that we say to him, you don't speak for us or our families. My concern is that we're going to continue to be so polite and so considerate and so patient and so diverse that we're going to be irrelevant. So I want to know, and if somebody in this room knows, how we can pull this wagon team together quickly, identify a couple of issues, and just run hard on them so that when Kelly Leach comes to town, we know what we're going to say and do. When Jason Kenney comes to town, we know who we are and what we're going to say and do. When all those other people who come to town and want to stop budgets for reproductive rights and do all kinds of other things, we know that we can send out a Facebook page or a social media and get 1,000 or 2 or 3 to that meeting. If we don't do this time in the next 18 months, we will be watching here what we're watching in the States. So if there's anybody in here that knows how to do this, could we please surface now?
I'm completely in accord with what you said, and I think it's really a very serious thing. In fact, the comments just in the last few days about Rachel Notley as a toxic, poisonous figure, and I thought the pushback about that wasn't really adequate, because calling her poisonous and toxic is part and parcel of those demonizing death threats that she gets, because we have to eliminate what's poisonous and toxic. So that discourse itself is misogynist and deadly. And so, well, I'm not, I do think that, getting together to strategize exactly what we're going to do, making sure we are out on the streets when these people come to town with posters, that we have a very good media campaign, that we have, because the other thing is that we don't have to invent the wheel, right? We already have a history of anti-racism. We already have a history of anti-Harperism, because they generated an incredibly powerful Islamophobic, racist discourse in order to try to get reelected. Fortunately, that didn't win them reelection on the basis of Islamophobic racism. And so I think that we do have lots of examples of how to go about it, but it is about getting organized. And you're right that this group has tremendous possibility to generate a lot of collective energy.
I see one more question, but before that, I absolutely agree as well. And oh, Elsie, I'm so sorry.
I didn't mean to.
I'm certainly glad I stayed and listened to the Q&A and all of this, because I was going to go because I have to go look after my ex-husband. But I'm glad I took a few moments to stay and listen, because I feel really energized, by all the talk and all of that, because I am the president of Kukum Ksewatsun Society, and that society is reclaiming those traditional roles that we lost through colonization, assimilation, and residential school. We are claiming our traditional roles as leaders, as grandmothers, and so therefore, there's a reason why I'm here, because I was saying that I'm planning on to do something for International Day, March 8th, for next year with the grandmothers. And
and this is not an accident that I'm here, you know, so therefore we need to get together as women in all these and support each other. I feel really supported and I feel really hopeful because we've lost our traditional roles as women, you know, through all those different kinds of abuses that we've had, you know. So we're very powerful as women, you know, in our society, claiming those traditional roles as grandmothers. We're the overseers of families in the community traditionally. We are the teachers, the preservers of culture, the storytellers. We have so many roles as women, you know, and not only Aboriginal women, but women of all races. We are the givers of life. So we need to stand together. And I want to plan something for International Day for Women next year, and I hope you come and support me. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but it'll be something. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elsie. And I encourage you to sign up for the new newsletter that we're putting together, and that is where we're going to be announcing women's events, women's news, things like that, that I hope we can collaborate on something going forward and really build up that network. There's one more question over here.
My name is Margaret, and I wish all of us start any conversation with our name, because I want to come to you and say, sister, I'm Margaret, who are you? I had the privilege last night of hearing Sally Armstrong speak at the Indo-Canadian Women's Thing. And I didn't know much about her, except my mother gave me the Canadian Living magazine in the 1970s. And I started reading it because it sort of fit where I was at that time. And she talked about personal will, not political will, not public will, but personal will. And the stories she told were about the work that she's done with very, very disenfranchised children in Afghanistan and Kenya. And it just brought to mind, why are we here today? It's for the same reason. You feel angry, you feel frustrated, but you don't have a forum to come together. So I just thank you for having this today, whoever the planners were. I'm glad to be here, but I want us to remember it's our personal will that makes this happen. And that's our story, because that is all we have is our story. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
I just wanted to thank you for that notion of personal will, but I'd also link that with the discussion and the questions earlier, that is our personal will, which is an individual will, our commitment to change, is linked up with the coalition of collectivity that we share together. And it's really important to remember that. In fact, I was just reading yesterday, Cindy Blackstock is very concerned about the fact that our federal government has not followed through on the commitment to give like the 36% that's missing in Indigenous children's education on reserve. Now that is a terrible thing, and our Prime Minister has many good qualities and he calls himself a feminist, but I would say the limits of a certain kind of feminism that are focused on individuality are very obvious. He needs to focus on the fact that he supports feminism, he supports women, then he should support Indigenous children. This is part of our collective work that we have to generate much more powerful public discussion about. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? I feel like we don't necessarily need to be at the front of the room. I think we were just asked to talk about intersectionality. It can be a conversation that everybody can join into. I mean, we're sitting in rows. We could change to the chairs, but really it's a conversation that, you know, we want to hear as many voices as possible. So does anybody else have anything they would like to say? Because I want to hear. Yeah.
So, Shauna, thanks. Margaret. I feel after what happened in the States, I was lying dormant for a period of time. And I worked in the educational field for a long time with a focus on social justice. And It's so important for me as a Caucasian heterosexual woman to have opportunities like this, because I need to hear the stories of others, because I know they're not part of my daily life, and so I will miss these things. Yet on the other hand, I feel to also be active, I have to prioritize and focus, because I want to take action, and I want that action to be deep. So I think there's a need for both. I think there's a need, like I came here specifically because I'm targeting a focus area on the issue of violence towards women. But I also don't want to miss the opportunity to meet as a group like this, because I learn things each and every time. So I want it all.
Thank you. And I'll come to you in a sec, but the balance of our event today is really dedicated to networking. So we really, really encourage you to have the conversations, to talk to our panelists, and to talk to each other, make connections, start to organize, and we can put something together.
I'm wondering if it would be useful to have a group of people who are interested in responding in particular to your call for action. And maybe we could meet over there,
yep.
right? Because there may be a subgroup that's interested in linking up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Good idea. And there was this question back here I want to make sure we get to.
Well, hi, thanks for the talk. It was great. My name is Ashley, and I think I'm one of the majority of people who are fairly politically apathetic and blissfully ignorant of issues that are going on. I have so much apprehension coming in because I ask myself these questions all the time. Like, I'm not angry enough. I'm not like I don't have like an issue that I think about all the time. So let's say for people who are like fairly neutral, do you have any recommendations and advice on how to be more active or how to help out people who do have a cause? Because I feel bad sometimes. I'm like, I think it relates to me, but I'm fairly politically apathetic. I mean, I vote, but other than that,
That's an outstanding question, and thank you for raising it. We really appreciate that. I think one of the first steps is go join that group over there.
But I think what you're demonstrating, though, is the way in which those social forces of power and privilege shape our lives. Because sometimes, until we encounter a roadblock and a brick wall, we don't necessarily encounter that sort of angry-making machinery that makes us want to act. So that's where the idea of allyship is so important. That is the notion of collectivity and common cause, taking up the interests not just of ourselves but of others, and developing through empathy and through that process of conversation and dialogue connections that are meaningful. So it is a really important point, and I know that you speak for many. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for the question, because I think really the first step was coming here, and that's excellent that you did that. And I think also it's about bringing other people who might feel similarly like maybe they should be doing something, and also bringing them along, because this is a great group of people. I mean, we're filling all of the seats, but really we need a lot more people, because it is about collective action, right? We have to act together, and we have to act in a concerted way where we're thinking critically about what kinds of decisions we're making, and making sure we're not leaving anyone behind, and that we're really being, disruptive in the most possible and effective ways, right? So the first step was coming here, and then it's just getting informed about the conversations. And it can be very daunting to come to a group like this, because there are a lot of fantastic women here who know a lot of things going on, but we learn by sharing knowledge, right? How are we going to recover those archaeologies of knowledge that are lost? Well, somewhere we have some of that information buried in ourselves, right? And we also just need to have all sorts of conversations across generations and across all different kinds of social divisions in order to really recover that knowledge. So that is an extremely important part of even what we're doing in the room. I think the idea of even just knowing each other's names and building community is also really important to building social action. So, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to suggest we break into our groups or have individual